Welcome to Technovation. I'm your host, Peter High. My guest today is John Hill. John is the Chief Digital and Information Officer at Carhartt, an American apparel company founded in 1889. John's been with the company for almost 6 years and spent time as Chief Information Officer, adding the role of SVP of Planning in late 2017 before taking on his role as CDIO in September of 2021. John spent time as a CIO and a technology executive at organizations such as the Government of Ontario, WSIB, and Grainger before joining Carhartt. John, welcome to Technovation.
Thanks, Peter. Happy to be here.
Well, John, I mentioned a brief overview of Carhartt, but you obviously can do it better justice than I can. Talk a bit about this more than century-old organization and the business that you're in, please.
Yeah, sure. So, Carhartt's mission is to serve and protect hardworking folks. So we're a premium workwear company with three main business segments. First, we sell to other retailers. So you'll find our product at Dick's Sporting Goods or Tractor Supply, among other retailers. We sell directly to consumers in our own stores and through our digital channels. And then finally, we've got a burgeoning business that's focused on helping companies to outfit their employees with uniforms. So for example, United Airlines outfits all of their employees below the wing with Carhartt apparel.
And I mentioned that you were the Chief Digital and Information Officer. Talk a bit about your purview and the two sides of your set of responsibilities.
Yeah. So from a role responsibility, I've got basically all technology inside Carhartt. There's no separate digital versus back-end ERP. So my team takes care of everything from the e-commerce space all the way back through what happens in our distribution centers and supply chain. So the full technology landscape. I have a digital strategy responsibility for the company in terms of figuring out how we're going to deploy technology. And then my team also takes care of all of the analytics and data science programs. So the data scientists, the BI engineers, the data engineers, they're in my organization as well. And then I've had responsibility for working on our transformation efforts in terms of how do we take technology and deploy them.
Can you talk a little bit more about some of those transformation efforts? It's interesting, the set of responsibilities you have around technology and digital. Talk a bit about some of how digital plays in an organization like yours and sources of innovation from it.
Yeah. So as you mentioned, I joined, I guess it's almost 6 years ago. And over that time, we've essentially replaced virtually everything inside of Carhartt from a technology landscape. We started initially to put in a number of edge applications that didn't exist. So think about things like product lifecycle management, CRM, digital asset management. And a lot of those technologies didn't exist in Carhartt. So we put those in place first before moving to a revamping of our systems of record. So think of systems of record as ERP, the e-commerce platforms. We knew those would be much more disruptive, and we wanted to put in place some other applications that could continue to evolve while the disruptive work was going on. So in late 2018, we sat down as a leadership team and made the decision that we were going to change our ERP. And we were on SAP, and it was a highly customized version of SAP, over 2,000 customizations, made it very difficult to really move at the pace we wanted to move, because any kind of change required a lot of regression testing to make sure everything was working. So as an executive team, we say, listen, we want to get back to standard. We want to be able to take advantage of the best practices that have been put together by a company like SAP and not customize it. So we put together a business team. We actually took one of our senior sales executives out of her role. She came over reporting to me, and we brought in people from finance, from supply chain, product, all parts of the business, who reported to her functionally, and she became part of my organization. Their mission was to figure out how we could get back to standard, re-engineer our processes to become much more agile and nimble. So over the last couple of years, we did that work. We first put in ERP for our retail business, and then went live with our wholesale and our supply chain business this summer. And then in the US, I should say, and we'll roll that out to our European business next summer. That customization went from over 2,000 to under 200. customizations. Now, interestingly, we thought that wasn't going to be hard enough, so we decided to replace our e-commerce system, our point of sale system, at the same time, and then decide to open up a new distribution 3PL as well. So over that same 2-year time period while we were replacing the ERP, we put in the new point of sale. And then this summer, we put in a new e-commerce platform for the US and a new 3PL. We'll roll out the e-commerce platform next summer at the same time we do the ERP for Europe. And my team thought, well, we could do a little more. And the business asked us to change fiscal years as well. So we did that this summer. So I would say that I would not recommend doing what we did. We certainly had challenges, but we knew we would have challenges with that type of a level of change in the organization. And it's been a rough summer. Luckily I didn't have hair when it started, so I didn't have to worry about losing it anymore. But we've really had that approach of how can we kind of redo all the plumbing, get ourselves in a good space to continue to innovate on. And I feel like we've done that. And the last piece we've done is accelerate our move to the cloud. So all of these key platforms were put into the cloud. And we're in the process of moving some other applications to Azure right now. We will have just a few things left over in our own data centers this fall, but we hope in a year to be completely out of our data center, have nothing left. We've moved our voice to a cloud solution, moved to an SD-WAN. So we've been fairly aggressive in making those moves over the last year as well.
Wow, that is a tremendous amount of transformation. And as you think about, revamping your systems of record, multiple of them essentially sequentially, at the same time, in fact, what were some of the keys to success? You mentioned it was a rough summer. I'm sure there were some times when it felt like it was 2 steps forward and 1 step back. But I'm curious, from a change management perspective or communications perspective, or engaging the broader leadership. What were some of the keys to make sure that even as you were in the throes of some of the more trying aspects of this change, that you kept people focused on the end goal and the rationale for the change itself?
Well, I think it's important if you step back to where we were, everybody knew, not just from an IT, we had made it clear that we couldn't continue to do what we wanted on the platforms we had. So there was no lack of desire from my business colleagues to make the move. In fact, we had an all executive meeting late in 2018, and we had a couple of line execs stand up and say, we need to get to a standard ERP. So, we had built that understanding right at the beginning, even before it launched, that that's what we were going to do. If SAP could do it, we were going to do it that way. So I think that's number one. Moving everybody into a cross-functional team, as opposed to, assigning people and they're still in their day jobs. I think was the other thing that was important, because we had a team that was highly focused, working together to kind of make the changes. If we didn't have them cross-functionally, I think we probably wouldn't have been as successful, because the finance team might have looked at, I want to do it this way. Supply chain, I want to do it this way. But bringing them all together, having them work for one leader, I think was really helpful. The steering committee, in terms of if that team decided that they didn't support a customization, the executive steering committee that would make the decision on that consisted of just 3 people: myself, the president, and the owner. As a result, nothing came to us for that. I think people decided, hey, we're going to work it out. We didn't have battles, with the executive team. That team did a really good job of communicating throughout that 2-year journey, every month, coming to the executives, sharing what's the progress. So I think that was helpful. The other thing we did at the beginning was we spent the first 3 months documenting the current processes. Rather than just jumping into the 2B, we documented all the current processes. So it made it really easy to always take it back to, this is the way you're doing it now, this is the way you're doing it in the future. We did hire a change management firm to help us up front. But I think Yeah, listen, anybody who's done an ERP migration knows that it doesn't matter what you do, they're unbelievably challenging. And I think we did the best we could to put ourselves in the right position, to be successful. On day one, we could take an order, we could ship an order, and we could invoice an order. And there's, like I said, we certainly have, we had some defects and some things to work on that we've got lessons learned on. But I think those are some of the key successes.
You mentioned also that part of your purview is data and analytics, and that you've been in the throes of changing some things around there and bolstering and strengthening your capabilities from that perspective. Could you take a moment and talk a bit about the methods and the outcomes you're at least hoping for on that side as well?
Yeah, the interesting thing is that the world of data and analytics is frankly just an insatiable demand. No matter what we do, there's people looking for more and more. And we started the data program at Carhartt probably about 4.5 years ago. We didn't have any data scientists. We had a fairly small team, and we've been very aggressively working to, put in a program. And our vision is to make sure that we've got data folks, kind of lined up to every part of the business to be able to help them engineer the data, to build the algorithms, and help them analyze it. The challenge that we frankly have right now is we've put in some AI, ML, just like probably everybody else, and we've had some good results on that. But there's more that we need to do in terms of kind of re-engineering that data platform. The data platform has evolved over time, and we've got every flavor of technology, I'm sure, just like other listeners. But we're going to use this as an opportunity to re-engineer that and reimagine it, and not have it be the data platform be the result of what we know in terms of the engineers, what they know, but rather what do we want it to be. I think we've had a good example of success stories. We built an AI application which sits on mapping technology, which helps our sales team, work to understand, what do we do in terms of opening new doors with our customers. Our D2C team uses it in terms of evaluating market segments to go open a store. And so, it's got a great foundation, and people see that there is power in that space. So they say there certainly builds that insatiable demand is the best way I can say it right now. But we're doing our best to continue to add folks as quickly as possible.
Very interesting. John, another fascinating facet of your evolution as a leader is you're pursuing a doctorate. I was really interested to learn in a recent conversation you and I had. Talk a bit about, first of all, why you elected to do so, and also your area of focus with your study.
Yeah, I started the doctoral program actually 2 years ago, virtually, to this point right now, this week. And it's something I had meant to do first my whole adult life. I actually started a PhD very early on after I finished my master's. And at the time, it just wasn't the right moment in time for me. So I put that on the back burner and said to myself, I'd always come back to it. And I don't know why I felt like, now is the time. A lot of people looked at me, I'm crazy that as a senior executive that I could, find the time to do this. But my oldest, was in college, my youngest in high school. She had a car. I wasn't shuttling people around to hockey games or any of those things anymore. So I figured, now is the time to do it. And, my doctorate is in business administration. I'm working with Florida Institute of Technology down in Melbourne, Florida. So the research I've done is on why do digitalization efforts by firms fail to produce digital capabilities? And I had a lot of practical experience in that space. I've talked to lots of CIOs, and so that's where I started in terms of my dissertation work. I have I've gone through all of the data collection, and I'm in the write-up now. And I can certainly, if you want, I can spend some time talking about, what was the dissertation topic, and
Please.
where is preliminary research.
Yeah.
So the hypothesis is that the amount of money that a firm spends on digitalization, their project management and change management competencies, that those really aren't going to be the key drivers in terms of a firm's ability to create, digital capabilities. That there's some other organizational constructs that are going to drive that, and identified three constructs: organizational slack, organizational alignment, and speed, which are really in an umbrella term that I've called digital agility. Now, I was somewhat lucky that nobody else used that term, digital agility. And frankly, I was somewhat stunned that it hadn't been used in either the press or the literature in any degree. So I've got that as the construct. So organizational slack, just real quick, what does that mean? That doesn't mean that it just have people sitting on the bench, waiting for work to do. It means that there's resources in an organization that can be redeployed from low value or not time sensitive activities to high impact, time sensitive things. So think about organizations that might reserve 5% of the time for innovation tasks, or time for development, personal development. Those organizations that have that slack, if there's a complex digitalization effort going on that requires people to all of a sudden be redeployed, having the ability to move those folks and not take them off other things is a significant driver. Organizational alignment. It sounds kind of like a no kidding kind of point, but it's a little more complex than that. A lot of companies will say, yes, we're aligned. We're going to go do these three things. However, most of them don't understand, what does that mean, that to go do those three things? Do they really understand what's going on inside of the organization at an operations level? Do they understand what capacities might exist inside of the company to do it? Do they understand when there's a conflict between various initiatives, what takes priority? It's all of those concepts around organizational alignment that the research would say that are impacting the ability of a firm to deliver. And then the last thing is speed. These type of initiatives require a firm to move quickly, to try to put something into production as quickly as possible, learn from and adjust. I think any of your listeners that have been in the world of agile, certainly will see the ability to create a minimum viable product, get it to market quickly, and learn is key. So what I did is I surveyed 132 CIOs. It's a pretty significant number of C-level executives to get a survey on, from a whole range from $10 billion plus companies down to less than $250 million companies across 13 different industries. So a very wide selection. And the results show that, as I expected, that the level of spend, project management, and change management are not statistically significant predictors of the ability to create digital capabilities relative to a firm's competitors. I did everything in terms of how does a company relate to their competitors. However, we did see that digital agility as a whole then was statistically significant, that those were predictors of a company being able to create digital capabilities that exceeds those of its competitors. And interestingly, I also did a check to see do digital capabilities turn into better performance for the firm? And same thing, we saw a high correlation between a company's digital capabilities relative to its competitors and its financial performance related to its competitors. So I'm in that period now where I'm doing the write-up, and I'll look to publish these results. If people know, in the academic world, it takes some time before you can actually get it into the press. and literature, but that's the next step, is just finishing the write-ups.
What do you find are some of the hindrances to this sort of change? As you point out, and it's encouraging to hear, those organizations that go about the very difficult work that you just described, your own organization going through under your leadership, that despite some pain perhaps in the short and medium term, there is long-term gain for the transformation required to do what you've described. And what have you found for those who have found it difficult to make the case to create this sort of change and transformation? What have been some of the impediments?
I think number one is, that executive alignment inside of the organization. There are so many competing priorities that need to get done. And, does a company step back and say, what am I not going to do in order to do this? And I think that's probably more important than what am I going to do? I think the organizations that do it well are very good about saying, I'm not going to do these things. And I know we did as a company. We sat back and we were brutal. We are not doing these things. We said we're only doing these top items. These are what's going to be critical to our future. So I think that's a key differentiator. And if any kind of complex transformation is going to be led by a single exec and hope that it's going to get through and all the rest of the business is moving at the same time, I think that is probably foolish at best. To assume that that's going to work, because those other execs are going to have to say, I'm not going to do X, Y, and Z, or I'm not going to expect these outcomes, and that's tough, for type A executives.
Yeah, that makes sense. What prompted your interest in getting a doctorate? Do you hope in one day to teach, to be a professor at a university, for example, as the next phase of your career?
Yeah, I would say, career 2.0 would be, being a professor somewhere, right? I'm not going to be probably one of those tenure track types of folks, but, I'd love to, teach at MBA program level somewhere. So that's my next evolution of my career once I decide to hang up the CIO shingle.
That's great. I wanted to also ask you, as you look to the future, John, what are some trends that particularly excite you?
As I mentioned before, AI and ML, I think we're just, really scraping the kind of the surface of what's possible in those spaces. We see opportunities in how we forecast product needs, for example. A large amount of our product is replenishment. We sell, this shirt. We sell these shirts, every year. We might add colors, but we're not a fashion company. In other words, we don't, do a lot of one and dones, and then we're on to a different style the next season. But how do you predict that business? Typically we use a normal planning type of approach. But we feel like there's a lot of opportunity to take a number of factors. It could be the number of doors, that's the number of stores that are opening, the size of the pad that we might have in those stores, what's happening from an economic or social perspective at the time, where the trend lines look like. So we feel like we can automate that replenishment business kind of end to end, from demand all the way through to replenishment in our supply chain. So that's pretty exciting. We see a lot of opportunity to predict what might be moving in terms of local micro segments, with AI. So a lot there. The next thing I think is going to be interesting is, how do we take all this work and I mentioned the data scientists, but no company can afford to have a ton of data scientists. And how do we create citizen data scientists? In other words, give them, the tools, the basic algorithms that they can start doing some of the work themselves without having gone through a PhD in data science. And there's some tools out there that are starting to come into play that we think, may have some opportunities. I think the third thing that we're excited about is taking the digitalization work that we've done and move them into areas like product development and sustainability. Product development, we've got tools that are already there. For example, on 3D, doing a lot of that development process there. But I think there's more we can do in terms of tying that together with our supply chain partners and integrating that whole space so that there's no physical samples, that we can really truly digitalize that space. If we do that, we cut a lot of cycle time out of what it takes to create a new product. And then in sustainability, the industry is certainly looking at what's that circular economy look like for a product, not only to sell it, but a number of our products are repaired and passed down generation to generation. So how do we provide information to that person who's repairing the product about the product and how to repair it? And then if it does need to go into landfill or other methods, well, how can the party that is going to take that product and dispose of it, how can they recycle part of it and dispose of other parts properly? So we see that as a pretty interesting space for digitalization efforts as well.
Well, John Hill, thank you so much for sharing a bit about the remarkable transformation of a 132-year-old company that you are a leader of, the various aspects of that transformation, some of the areas that you're studying now and getting your doctorate and your vision for the future on a variety of different fronts. It's been a fascinating conversation.
Yeah, thanks for having me.